For those who perhaps might not know, Kenya's transformation has been on the cards since independence. At independence, we know there was the liberation narrative, to get Kenyans free from colonial rule. With that independence, there was a promise of education, eradication of illiteracy, and disease. Many years later, a lot of Kenyans agreed that those vices were still intact. And 5 decades later, poverty had deepened, disease had become even more complex, and illiteracy was still with us. And so the search for transformation has been a constant quest, and it has had different successive momentums. Of course, there was what was christened the first liberation, which is what I've just described. And then there is what others have called the second liberation, whose outcomes we all know. And we know that there's a period between 1978 and 2002 when we had a dictatorship in the name of the second president. And there was a lot of struggle to get rid of that dictatorship, to a point when we had a one-party state by law. Coups had been attempted in this country in 1971 and 1982 by those forces that constantly have been searching for freedom and a better Kenya. Somewhere around 2010, Kenyans overwhelmingly voted for a new constitution, and that new constitution is hailed for coming up with very innovative and novel governance structure, the celebrated devolution program, which has managed to access several parts of the country, benefits that hitherto had not been seen before. But then, even at the time of writing the 2010 Constitution, there was a section of society that was claiming that there were gaps and there were certain things that needed to be ironed out. Ever since we passed the devolution Constitution, we have had a series of elections, and none of those elections have been without problems. And so problematic elections became a permanent feature of Kenya's multi-party democracy since we ushered multi-partyism anew. What that has meant is that all our transitions don't seem to be complete, and they often seem to abort. And so that in 2017, we conducted an election which was fairly peaceful, but then we ran into trouble, particularly with the tallying and the accumulating of results. Of course, the contestants contested this in court, and the Supreme Court nullified the entire election on account of the fact that the process was neither free nor fair. Consequent to that, a second election was ordered, and in that second election, the challenger of the current incumbent president boycotted that election. And so we had a situation where the president was elected. Nevertheless, despite the fact that several constituencies and counties did not participate in the second vote. We then had the president sworn in, but the challenger was also sworn in as the people's president. And so the country went into a dark period around which there was contestation and street protests that led to almost a situation of futility. And in actual fact, the state that was elected had lacked the legitimacy to govern. And so there was a period around which there was crisis. There was a lot of violence in the streets and deaths, and really the economy ground to a halt. And so out of mediation that might have been external as well as internal, the two protagonists agreed to a dialogue. The two of them went into a discussion, and that gave birth to what has been famously known as the handshake, sometime in February of 2018. And out of that handshake, the two leaders agreed to launch what has been christened the Building Bridges to Unity initiative, that identified 9 key issues that have been dogging the country, one of which was electoral injustice, and for which both of them committed that they would provide the goodwill to take the country to the next level. It is in that context that then BBI becomes the only national project that is discussing Kenya's transformation and that possesses the goodwill of the two main leaders who are popular and divide the country almost into two equal halves.